Welcome to the Rainy Tales, where every raindrop lulls you closer to sleep. It's 2:17 a.m., and I'm about to share true stories that reshaped my life. Real encounters with mystery that taught me some secrets are best left undisturbed. Let the soothing rain calm your mind as you listen. And if you've ever felt that eerie chill in the dark, know you're not alone. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any chilling tales. And before we begin, tell me in the comments, what time is it for you and where are you watching from? Let's dive in. Story number 1. This isn't a ghost story. Ghosts are for those who haven't witnessed what I have. This is about the voicemails, the ones that began arriving 3 months ago. Always from blocked numbers, always in the dead of night. I've changed my number twice. It makes no difference. They always find me. It began on a Tuesday. I was editing footage for a true crime podcast. The glow of my laptop, the only light in my apartment. My phone buzzed. A call from unknown. I let it ring, and 30 seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. 12 seconds of static. Then a voice, wet and guttural, as if speaking through a throat full of mud. "Check the closet, now." I laughed. It had to be a prank. My friend Josh knew I was burning the midnight oil, knee-deep in eerie content, but when I called back, the number was disconnected. Then the smell hit me. Sweet, cloying, like rotting lilies trapped in a sealed jar. It clung to my tongue, metallic and thick. I tore through the apartment. Trash, sink, fridge, nothing. The closet door stared at me. A repository of old coats and forgotten camera gear. It hadn't been opened in months. Yet the smell pooled around it, dense and insistent. The knob was ice cold. Not merely cold, but burning cold, like dry ice. My fingers stuck to it. When I yanked the door open, the stench exploded. Rotting flowers, copper, and something else. Meat left to spoil in the sun. Empty. But on the floor, centered like an offering, lay a single black rose. Its petals were crisp and curled, its stem snapped clean. "I'm allergic to roses." I texted Josh. "Funny, how'd you get this in here?" He denied it. So did my roommate, Sam, who was hiking in Colorado. The super hadn't been by in weeks. I tossed the rose, slammed the closet, and tried to work. But the smell lingered. So did the voice in my head. "Check the closet. Now." At 3 a.m., the knocking began, not on the door. Inside the closet. 3 slow raps. Silence. 3 more. I froze. My phone buzzed. Another voicemail. 22 seconds. Static. Then, "You're not listening. Let me out." A sound like claws dragging down wood. I called the police. They found nothing. No rose, no smell, just me, wild-eyed, pointing at the closet. The officer suggested I cut back on caffeine. The next night, it worsened. Another voicemail. "You're running out of time." The closet knob rattled, not a shake, but a twist, as if someone were testing it from within. I wedged a chair under the handle and slept with the lights on. At dawn, I discovered scratches, thin, jagged lines gouged into the closet door. 5 parallel streaks. I bought a lock, heavy-duty steel. It didn't matter. The third voicemail came at midnight. "Last chance." A child's giggle echoed. The smell returned, thicker now, metallic like pennies baking on asphalt. I gagged, fumbling to record the closet on my phone. Then I saw it, in the reflection of my screen just before the camera flipped. A shadow behind me. Tall, hunched, its head tilted at a broken angle. I spun around. Nothing. But the closet door stood open, a slit of darkness. I inched closer, phone trembling. The stench was unbearable, yet curiosity, or terror, pulled me forward. Empty. Then the giggle came again. Not from the phone, but from behind me. I turned. The shadow stood in the corner, not a mere shape, but a void that swallowed the light. Its head tilted further, bones cracking like dry kindling. The voice, guttural and wet. You should have listened. It lunged, not at me, but through me. A cold, oily pressure flooded my chest. My vision blurred. When I blinked, the shadow was gone. Yet the closet door remained wide open. Inside, scrawled in ash, "I'm in here." My phone buzzed, a new voicemail, static. Then, "Too late!" A door slammed. Screaming started. Not mine, but a child's scream emanating from the closet. I moved out the next day, leaving everything behind. But last week my new phone rang, from a blocked number. Static. That voice. "You forgot something." A package arrived. A small box. Inside, wrapped in black tissue, lay the rose. Fresh now, its petals blood red. A note. "See you soon." The smell followed me to the dumpster. It's in my hair, on my clothes. I've stopped answering calls, yet sometimes at night, the closet door creaks open on its own, and I hear giggling. If you've ever ignored a call from an unknown number, comment below. Story number 2. This isn't about a demon. It's about Sarah, my best friend who vanished when we were 8 and returned. But not the same. We discovered the music box in her attic. Old, rusted, with a ballerina frozen mid-twirl. Sarah claimed it played a song called "The Cradle of Shadows." I laughed. We were kids. Everything was a game. Yet when she cranked it, the melody slithered out. No tinkling notes, only a low, warped hum. A funeral dirge played backward. Sarah smiled and whispered, "It remembers." 2 days later, she was gone. Her parents found the music box tucked in my backpack. They called me a thief, a liar. But I didn't take it. I couldn't have. The attic door had been locked that week. The key lost. 20 years later, it's returned, sitting on my doorstep pristine, as if time itself had reversed. And last night, it began playing on its own. Sarah and I were inseparable. We built forts in her attic, sipped potions made of Kool-Aid and toothpaste, and vowed to live in a treehouse forever. Then came the music box. Her attic was a labyrinth of dust and old trunks. That day, sunlight pierced the grime to reveal a small, tarnished box beneath a moth-eaten blanket. Sarah yanked it free, grinning. "Look, it's magic!" The ballerina's face was chipped, her paint faded to a sickly gray. Sarah cranked the handle. Nothing. She frowned, shook it, then cranked again. The sound struck me first. A deep, shuddering vibration like a cello dragged over gravel. The ballerina jerked. Snap! Her arm broke off. Sarah giggled. "It's alive!" I felt queasy. The air thickened with a sweet, coppery scent, like rotting fruit mixed with blood. Sarah's smile froze. "It's watching us." We ran. The next day she missed school, and the day after, her house became a crime scene. The police found nothing, no note, no sign of struggle. Just the music box, hidden beneath my backpack straps. Her parents screamed, "Why did you take it?" I maintained I didn't. But no one believed me, not even my own mother. Therapy sessions, police interrogations, hushed accusations. They hollowed me out. For months, Sarah's face haunted the newspapers. Local girl vanishes. Friend suspected. I moved away at 18, changed my name, burned every photo of us. Last month, I returned to my hometown. The music box awaited on my porch, pristine, the ballerina restored. No note. I tossed it in the trash. That night, I awoke to its hum. It oozed from the kitchen. The music box lay on the counter, lid open, the ballerina spinning smoothly. The song was clearer now, with whispers woven through the notes, Sarah's voice distorted. "You shouldn't have left me." I smashed it with a hammer. Pieces flew. The ballerina's head tumbled under the fridge. The next morning, it reassembled itself, lying on my pillow. I drove to Sarah's old house. The new owners, a young couple with a toddler, let me into the attic. Dust motes drifted in the stale air. The trunk where we'd discovered the box was gone. But in a corner, half hidden beneath insulation, lay a drawing. Childish stick figures of me, Sarah, and a black scribble with too many eyes. Underneath, in red crayon, "It remembers." The wife found me staring. Creepy, right? We found that when we moved in. Our daughter won't go near this room. That night, the music box played even louder. Sarah's voice hissed through the walls. "You promised we'd stay together." I drank until I passed out. Bad idea. I dreamed of the attic. Sarah stood there, but not the Sarah I knew. Her eyes milk white, her hair matted with cobwebs. She clutched the music box. "You left me with it," she said. "Now it wants you." I awoke to scratches on my bedroom door. 5 parallel gouges. The music box sat on my dresser. The ballerina's posture had changed. Her back arched, one leg bent unnaturally, as if she'd been struggling. I called a priest. He glanced at the box and left, muttering about old debts. Next, a paranormal investigator arrived. She recorded the whispers, analyzed them, then deleted the files. "This isn't for the living," she said, refusing payment. Desperate, I drove to the river and hurled the box into the dark water. It sank with a gurgle. Relief lasted until I returned home. It reappeared on my couch, dripping wet, with seaweed tangled in the ballerina's hair. The lid creaked open. Sarah's voice boomed, "You can't leave!" The room plunged into a frigid darkness. Shadows pooled on the walls, stretching into spindly arms. The music swelled, drawing me toward the box. I grabbed a lighter. The ballerina's head snapped toward me. "Don't!" I flicked the flame. It screamed, a chorus of voices with Sarah's the loudest. The box erupted into blue fire. Ash swirled, forming a face, her face, then silence. The walls wept black liquid. The stench of burnt hair choked the air. Yet the box was gone. I moved again, changed my name. But this morning, a package arrived with no return address. Inside lay the music box. The ballerina is different now. Her pose twisted, her back bent impossibly, her face tilted upward in a silent scream. And there's a new addition. A tiny figure beside her. Mr. If you've ever kept a secret you shouldn't have, comment below. Because some memories, they don't stay buried. Story number 4. My grandmother died gripping my wrist so hard it left bruises. Her final words, "Never answer the house when it knocks." I thought she meant strangers. I was wrong. Our family home has stood since 1893. 3 generations of Carters lived here, and all of them died here, except me. The floors creak in Morse code. The walls hum lullabies at 3 a.m. But after Gran's funeral, the house woke up. Last week, renovating the attic, I found my great-grandfather's diary, page 23, smudged with what I hope is rust. The house is alive. It gets hungry. Feed it, or it feeds on you. 2 days later, the knocking started. Not at the door, from under the floorboards. And tonight, it's learning my name. The house never liked me. Even as a kid, I'd catch the curtains twitching when no one was home. Gran would whisper to the walls like they were old friends. "Hush now, Albert. The boy doesn't know any better." Albert Carter, my great-grandfather, built this place after the Civil War. Family legend says he buried his first wife in the foundation. "Nonsense!" Gran would snap. "But don't you dig too deep, Max." After she died, I inherited the rotting Victorian and its secrets. The attic renovation was supposed to be therapeutic. Instead, I found the lockbox, rusted shut, hidden under insulation that reeked of mothballs and burnt hair. Inside, the diary, a dried rose, and a child's leather shoe, size 3. The entry dated October 31st, 1902. Fed it today, Ellen argued. Said I was mad. But she doesn't hear the whispers in the walls, doesn't see the shadows that lick the windows. The crack is widening. It wants more. The crack. I found it in the basement, a jagged split in the limestone foundation, wide enough to fit a fist. The edges were stained black, the stone around it warm to the touch. When I pressed my palm to it, the floor above groaned like a stomach cramping. That night, the knocking began. 3 taps, then silence. I blamed the pipes. By dawn, it was a rhythm, shave and a haircut. I tore up the floorboards, expecting rats. Instead, I found teeth, not animal teeth. Human. Small, milk white, strung on a wire like a grotesque wind chime. Gran's voice echoed in my head. Never answer. The smell came next. Rotting meat and burnt sugar, so thick I gagged. The knocking turned frantic. Bang, bang, bang. I poured concrete into the crack. Bad idea. The house retaliated. Walls seeped a tar-like substance, cold and sticky, that crawled toward my feet if I stood still. My reflection in the hallway mirror began lagging, moving seconds after I did. Once, it waved. Then the voices started. A child's whisper. Let me out. I found another diary entry, dated 1905. Elliot's gone. The house took him. Ellen says we'll tell folks he ran away, but I saw the shadows coil round his ankles. Heard it whisper his name. My boy. My fault. Elliot. My great-uncle, erased from family records. A photo slipped from the diary. My great-grandfather, gaunt and grim, beside a boy my age. Elliot. His hand rested on a toy soldier, its paint chipped to blood-red primer. The knocking became scratching. Last night, it spoke. Max! My name, dragged through gravel and static. I snapped, grabbed a crowbar, pried up the floorboards. The hole beneath was endless, reeking of decay. A hand shot out, skeletal, clutching Elliot's rusted toy soldier. You stopped feeding it, Elliot's voice hissed from the dark. Now it wants you. The walls groaned. Plaster rained down as the crack split wide, revealing teeth, rows of jagged yellowed bone. The house yawned. I ran. Didn't stop until I hit the motel on Route 9. I'm writing this from room 217. The knocking followed. It's in the walls here. The clerk insists I'm the only guest. But last night the phone rang. Mr. Carter, your house called. It's waiting. The toy soldier sits on the nightstand, its head turned toward me while I slept. This morning I found scratches on the bathroom mirror. F-E-E-D-M-E. My razor's gone. If your home ever whispers your name, comment below. Story number 5. I drive a 2017 Honda Civic. License plate 4, SKLL 72. If you ever ride in it, check the back seat. If you see scratches, thin, jagged lines, like something clawed its way out, run. This isn't a ghost story. Ghosts don't leave scars. Ghosts don't itch. Her name was Clara. At least that's what the app said. She was my last pickup on October 12th, and she didn't say a word the entire ride. Not until she leaned forward, her breath reeking of burnt hair and stagnant pond water, and whispered, "They're almost here." That night, I found the first scratch. 3 lines deep enough to snag fabric carved into the passenger window. Now they're everywhere, on the doors, the ceiling, the gear shift, and on me. I'm telling you this because the rain tonight sounds like her voice. Hollow, relentless, and the scratches, they're moving. Rideshare driving was supposed to be temporary, a way to pay rent while I finished my degree. Most nights blurred into a haze of fast food smells and half-awake chatter. But Clara? I remember every detail. She requested a pickup at 2:13 a.m. outside the lakeside diner, a rotting husk of a building with boarded windows and a flickering neon sign that buzzed like a dying insect. No profile picture, no rating, just a name. Clara. When she slid into the back seat, the air turned thick, like we'd been sealed in a vacuum. She wore a yellow sundress, faded to the color of old newspaper, and her hair hung in wet ropes. Her hands were hidden under her thighs, nails tapping the upholstery, tap, 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 in a frantic Morse code. "Where to?" I asked, forcing a smile. No answer. The GPS glitched, flashing, "Destination?" before defaulting to Pine Grove Cemetery. Halfway there, the scratching started, a faint scritch from the back seat. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Clara's head stayed down, but her shoulders twitched rhythmically, like she was carving. "You okay back there?" Nothing. The smell hit next. Burnt sugar and wet earth, so thick I gagged. My fingers tightened on the wheel. When we pulled into the cemetery, she handed me a $20 bill. Cold, damp, stained brown. "Keep the change," she rasped. Her fingernails were blackened, jagged, the skin around them raw and peeling. I didn't notice the scratches until after she vanished. 3 lines on the passenger window. Deep, deliberate. The next day, I detailed the car, polished the windows, scrubbed the seats. By sunset, the scratches were back. Not just on the glass, the trunk, the roof, inside the glove box, slashed into the registration papers. Then my skin started itching. Tiny red lines on my forearm. 3 parallel scratches. I blamed my cat, Mittens, though she'd never clawed me. But the marks spread. My legs, my back, my face, always in threes, always shallow, like something testing its grip. I tracked down Clara's address. The diner was abandoned, but a homeless man camped outside muttered, "She's been dead 2 years. Crashed her minivan after her kid drowned in Lake Mercer. They say she still picks him up from school." That night, the GPS lit up unprompted. Destination, Lakeview Elementary. I shouldn't have gone. The school was a graveyard of chained gates and shattered windows. The Civic's headlights reflected off the playground swings, creaking in the wind like rusty metronomes. In the back seat, new scratches formed in real time. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Blood welled along the grooves, dripping onto the seats. A voice behind me. "You shouldn't have come." Clara sat in the back seat, her dress soaked, skin bloated and gray, water pooled at her feet, reeking of algae and decay. "They're here now. They followed you." The doors locked with a hollow click. The engine died. Shadows pooled outside the car, small, child-sized, with limbs that bent at impossible angles. They scratched at the windows, their fingers tap-tap-tapping in unison. Clara smiled, her teeth blackened stumps. "I just wanted to see him again, but they hitchhiked back with you." The windshield cracked. A hand reached through, ice cold and skeletal, and grabbed my throat. I stomped the gas. The engine roared to life, tires screaming against asphalt, the shadows scattered like roaches. Clara was gone, but the scratches remained. I sold the Civic. The dealership didn't notice the marks, but last night my new car's GPS lit up. Destination? The scratches are on my apartment door now. 3 lines, always 3. And the itching, it's worse. Sometimes, in the mirror, I see them behind me. Small, shadowy figures, their fingers twitching. Waiting. Story number 6. Every family has secrets. Ours isn't buried in the backyard or hidden in a will. It's in the photos, not the people. The room? It first appeared in a daguerreotype from 1893. My great-great-grandmother posed stiffly in her parlor, her eyes darting off-frame, a locked door visible over her shoulder. The same door reappeared in every family portrait since. Weddings, birthdays, graduations, always in the background, always slightly ajar. As a kid, I thought it was a quirk of old architecture. Grandma's death taught me otherwise. Last week it showed up in my selfie. And this time, the door is open. Grandma warned me never to ask about the room. But after her funeral, I found her journal. The last entry, dated the night she died, reads, "It's moving closer, don't let it out." Too late. The album was bound in cracked leather, its spine frayed like burnt parchment. Grandma kept it locked in her cedar chest, but I'd glimpsed it once as a child. She'd snapped it shut, her knuckles white, and hissed, "Some things aren't for looking." When I inherited the chest, the album sat on top. The lock had rusted open, and the first photo stopped me cold. A sepia-toned portrait of my great-aunt Eleanor, 1921. She stood in a sunlit garden, roses clutched in trembling hands. But behind her, through a grimy window, the room loomed. Closer now, its door splintered, hinges bent outward as if something had battered its way free. I flipped ahead. 1955. My grandfather's wedding. The room filled a hallway mirror, its door wide enough to reveal a sliver of darkness inside. The bride's smile strained, her fingers digging into Grandpa's arm like she wanted to flee. 2003. My parents' anniversary. The room occupied an entire wall, its door inches from my mother's shoulder. She'd always hated that photo, claiming it felt wrong. Now I understood why. Then I found the selfie, taken last month in my apartment, behind me in the reflection of my TV screen. The door, open. A darkness thicker than night pooled in its frame. My hands shook. The photos weren't aging. The room was. The smell came first. Old film developer, acidic and sharp. It clung to my clothes, seeped into my sheets. Then the sounds, knocking from inside the walls, 3 rapid taps followed by a wet, gurgling laugh. Grandma's journal explained nothing. Pages were torn out, entries redacted with black ink. Except one. Henry tried to destroy it. 1947. They found him clawing at the attic wall, screaming it was eating the light. The room took him 3 days later. Henry, my great-uncle, erased from family records. I drove to the old homestead. The new owners, a young couple with a baby, let me into the attic. Dust motes swam in the stale air. The wall Henry had clawed was repaired, but the floorboards nearby were scarred. 5 parallel gouges. I knelt, running my fingers over the marks. Cold. Too cold. My phone buzzed. A notification. 1 new photo. The screen showed my back as I knelt. Behind me, the room's door stood open, darkness spilling into the attic like ink. I ran. That night, the knocking followed me home. The room appeared in my bathroom mirror. Not a reflection, a presence, warping the glass like heat haze. The door creaked open, exhaling air that reeked of wet soil and copper. Grandma's voice echoed from the void. "Close it! Close it!" I slammed the mirror shut. Too late. The room seeped into my apartment. Walls bulged, plaster cracking to reveal rotted wood beneath. The door materialized in my hallway, vibrating with the force of something pounding from the other side. "Let me out," Henry's voice gargled. "Please, it's so dark in here." I pressed my ear to the door. Silence, then scratch, 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 something sharp carving words into the wood. "Hello, Max." The knob turned. I moved, changed cities, burned the album. But this morning, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a Polaroid. Me, asleep on my new couch. Behind me, the door fills the entire wall. Its handle is turning. If you've ever seen something lurking in your photos, comment below. Story number 7. On October 17th, 2023, I played a record that didn't exist. By 2 a.m., the calls started. Hundreds of listeners swore they heard dead loved ones whispering through their speakers. By dawn, 3 were hospitalized for acute psychological distress. By noon, the FCC shut us down. But it's still broadcasting. My name is Alex Cross. I was a late-night radio host for WXXH, a relic of a station rotting on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio. Our listeners were truckers, insomniacs, and conspiracy theorists, the kind who'd lap up a haunted broadcast. The vinyl arrived in a water-stained box postmarked 1938. No return address, no label. Just a plain black disc with a single groove spiraling to its center. A note inside read, "For the curious." I laughed, a listener's idea of a joke. But when the station manager, Frank, saw it, his face turned the color of curdled milk. "That's the Ohio recording. Toss it, now." "Why?" He hesitated. "They pulled it from the Scioto River after the flood. Every station that's played it goes silent." I kept it. That night, during my Midnight Mysteries slot, I queued it up. The needle hissed, then silence, then static. Not the white noise kind. This was textured. Layers of whispers, muffled screams, and a low, wet gurgling, like a river choking on mud. The first call came at 12:37 a.m. "Who's the woman crying?" A trucker, voice shaky. "Sounds like my mom. She died in '98. The second caller sobbed. "That's my brother's voice. He drowned in Lake Erie." By 1:15 a.m., the studio phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Then the vinyl changed. The static coalesced into a voice. "Help us. They're in the water." WXXH radio was a time capsule. A 1940s Art Deco tower with cracked marble floors and walls stained yellow from decades of cigarette smoke. Our equipment predated the moon landing, and half the dials were held together with duct tape. But that vinyl? It hummed with a predatory energy, like a sleeping thing finally stirred. Frank burst into the booth at 1:45 a.m., eyes wild. "Turn it off, now! Too late!" The broadcast leaked online. Viral clips claimed listeners heard personalized messages. A grieving widow heard her husband's last words. "Tell the kids I'm sorry." A firefighter heard his fallen crew screaming, "Get out! The roof's collapsing!" But the worst call came at 2:13 a.m. "I know where you live." A child's voice, giggling. "We're in your walls." The line went dead. I ripped off the headphones. The studio was freezing, my breath visible. The vinyl spun backwards, needle carving grooves into the label. Frank grabbed it. The second he touched it, his nose bled. "You idiot! The '38 flood wasn't a flood, it was a ritual." He tossed the record into a trash can, doused it in lighter fluid, and struck a match. The flames turned blue. The vinyl screamed, a chorus of voices, human and not. We ran. The next morning, WXXH was a smoking crater. Arson, they said. Frank vanished, but that night the static crackled through my car radio. "You shouldn't have run." They found Frank's body in the Scioto River a week later. His lungs were full of mud, his eyes gouged out. The coroner called it death by drowning. In bone-dry clothes. The vinyl reappeared on my doorstep. I smashed it with a hammer. Shards sliced my palm, blood sizzling on the grooves like grease on a skillet. That's when the thing crawled out. Not a ghost. A sludge-black mass with too many limbs, dripping river muck and reeking of rot. Its face was a shifting mosaic of the flood victims. Men, women, children, mouths frozen in silent screams. "We're almost through," it gurgled. "Thanks to you." I fled. Drove until the gas light blinked. The motel TV flickered on, static. Then, a 1938 newsreel. "Ohio River swells overnight, thousands missing." The footage glitched. revealed rows of people walking into the water, chanting. The sludge thing filled the screen. Join us. I drove to the flood's ground zero, Portsmouth, Ohio. The library archives held microfilm yellowed with age. October 22nd, 1938. Local cult leader Elias Voss claims ascension requires 333 souls. Police dismiss as hysteria. October 31st, 1938. River surges overnight. No survivors. Voss's church empty. Walls scrawled with symbols. The symbols matched the vinyl's center label. That night, the static followed me to the riverbank. The water bubbled, releasing the stench of decay. Shapes emerged, skeletal, dripping, their eyes glowing like drowned coals. The sludge thing rose, its voice 1,000 whispers. You opened the gate. Now feed it. The river surged. Hands clawed at my ankles. I ran. Behind me, the static swelled into a roar. I'm writing this from a cabin in Michigan. The static follows me. Last night, the sink spat up river water. My phone plays garbled voices. They're coming. They're here. The radio crackled to life an hour ago. Frank's voice. You're next. Outside, the rain sounds like footsteps. Story number 8. My fitness tracker buzzed with a notification. Heart attack imminent, 23 hours. I laughed. I was 28, a marathon runner, and vegan. But by hour 12, it knew things it shouldn't. My blood type, the scar on my knee from a childhood fall, the exact time my dad died. At hour 1, it stopped counting. It just said, "Don't look behind you." This isn't a story about a haunted gadget. It's about what happens when technology decides you're expendable. And trust me, you'll never look at your devices the same way again. I bought the tracker at a flea market outside the city on a rain-soaked Sunday. The vendor's stall was a chaotic collage of forgotten tech. Cracked screens, tangled cables, and devices humming with residual energy. The air smelled of burnt coffee and wet cardboard. The tracker caught my eye because it was pristine. Sleek, black, no branding. The vendor, an old man with fingers stained nicotine yellow, grinned as I picked it up. "Prototype," he said. "Tracks more than steps." I shrugged it off. For $20, I figured it'd be a quirky conversation starter. Syncing it to my phone took seconds. No app, no permissions. The interface was minimalist. Heart rate, sleep cycles, stress levels. But on day 3, it logged a stress spike before my toxic client stormed into my office. Coincidence, I told myself. Then came the dehydration warning. Risk, 92% flashed as I sipped my morning coffee. I shrugged it off, until I collapsed at the gym. The ER found nothing. "Maybe ease up on caffeine," the doctor joked. But the tracker buzzed again. Heart attack imminent, 23 hours. I Googled the serial number etched on the back. One result? A Reddit thread titled, "Do not trust the numbers, it's testing you." The post was deleted, but the preview lingered. They're stealing your time. The Reddit user, u/stayawake2023, had commented on dozens of threads about mysterious tech. Their profile was a graveyard of paranoia. The tracker doesn't measure your life, it decides it. They're in the water. The sink overflowed. It's not water, it's black, thick. They're coming. I DM'd them. No reply. But at 3 a.m., my inbox pinged. Check your tracker. Lifespan, 0.7 years. I laughed. My doctor had just cleared me. But the next morning, the number dropped to 0.6. Panicked, I drove to a tech repair shop. The mechanic, a grizzled man with a sleeve of circuit board tattoos, frowned. "No ports, no screws. It's fused." He prodded the band, like it's leaching into your skin. That night, the smells started. Burnt copper, like a blown fuse. Ozone, sharp and electric. and a cloying sweetness, like expired cough syrup, seeping from my pores. I tried cutting the band. Scissors bent. Knives glanced off. At hour 12, my friend Jess noticed. "Your wrist, it's bruising." Purple veins spiderwebbed under the band. "Let's go to the ER." The nurses couldn't remove it. "It's bonded to your tissue," one whispered. "Like roots." At hour 6, the tracker buzzed. "Lifespan, 0.3 years. Jess dragged me to a hacker collective downtown. The leader, a woman named Raya, scanned it with a handheld device. "It's emitting a frequency, not Bluetooth, something older." The screen flickered. "Non-compliance detected." Ria's device sparked. "Get it off her, now!" I smashed it with a sledgehammer in the alley. Black fluid oozed from the screen, hissing as it ate through concrete. My phone lit up. Accelerating protocol. The countdown skipped to 1 hour. My chest tightened. The room spun. I stumbled into a gas station bathroom, the tracker's shards still grafted to my wrist. In the mirror, my reflection lagged, mouthing words I didn't say. "Almost got you." The tracker beeped. "Don't look behind you." I looked. The shadow wasn't mine. It stood taller, emaciated, its head cocked sideways. The air turned frigid. "Lifespan, 0.0 years?" The lights died. The shadow lunged. I woke in the ER, the tracker gone. "Stress-induced episode," the doctor said, but my wrist was scarred. A spiraling burn, like a corrupted USB symbol. A week later, a package arrived. No postage, no return address. Inside, a new tracker. It synced instantly. The screen flickered. "Lifespan transfer complete. Next donor, Mom." I called her. Busy signal. Rain hammered the windows as I drove to her house. Her car was gone. The door hung open. On her kitchen counter, a tracker, identical to mine. The screen read, 23 hours. Her voice echoed from the basement. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." If you've ever doubted the device in your hand, comment below. Because some tech knows too much. Story number 9. Every family photo in our attic has the same silver locket in the corner. Not around someone's neck, just sitting there, glinting. My grandmother called it the Watcher. Last week, I inherited it. Now the faces in those photos are turning toward me. This isn't a story about a haunted heirloom. It's about what happens when your ancestors refuse to stay dead. And the locket? It's not just watching, it's waiting. The locket arrived in a velvet box, postmarked from Romania, where my great-grandmother fled in 1943. The note inside read, "For Eliza, on her 25th birthday. Wear it once, then bury it. Do not open." It was cold, heavier than it looked, with a floral pattern worn smooth by time. I clasped it around my neck, ignoring the prick of its clasp. That night, the dreams started. A woman in a blood-stained wedding gown, standing in a field of headstones, chanting, "7 years to break the chain. 7 years, or we rise again." I woke to the smell of wet soil and roses. The locket glowed faintly, its latch undone. Inside, a curl of hair, black as ink. The attic photos, when I checked, had changed. My great-grandmother's eyes now stared directly at the locket. In the attic, I found her 1943 diary. Pages detailed a village ritual. The eldest daughter wears the locket for 7 years, binding the dead to silence. Fail, and the pact breaks. My grandmother skipped her turn. She fled to America, changed our name. The locket's chain tightened. Relatives in old wedding portraits began crawling toward the locket's spot. Their faces rotted in real time. The smell of decay clung to the attic. A genealogist I hired found records of 7 female relatives who died at 25, each after refusing the locket. "It's a generational failsafe," he said. Break the cycle, and the dead claim what's owed. My cousin Mia, 25, drowned in her bathtub. The coroner found riverweed in her lungs from a river 50 miles away. At her funeral, the locket hummed. Mia's corpse sat up in her casket, looked at me and mouthed, "You're next." The dreams led me to the headstone field. Rain lashed the graves as the wedding gown woman emerged. "You're late," she hissed. "The dead are hungry." The locket burned, searing my chest. The ground split, revealing a staircase choked with roots. Below, a cavern pulsed with bioluminescent fungi. Relatives hung suspended in webbed cocoons, their eyes milky. The woman gestured to an altar. "Bind yourself, or join them." A dagger, a bowl, and a scroll awaited. The ritual demanded a sacrifice, a year of life or a living heir. My daughter's face flashed in my mind. I slashed my palm, blood filling the bowl. The cocoons writhed. 7 years, the woman sighed. But the dead remember. I buried the locket in the woods. The photos reverted. But every rainfall, the dirt above its grave parts, revealing its silver glint. Last night, my daughter found a pretty necklace in the garden. It's back on my nightstand. And the diary's final page? A new entry in my handwriting. 7 years begin tomorrow. If you've ever inherited something that didn't belong, comment below. Story number 10. Our town's wishing well was famous for answering prayers. Toss in a coin, whisper a desire, and the echo would reply, "Granted." But no one told me the dead answer too. Last week, I dropped a quarter and heard my mother's voice. The same mother who vanished when I was 6, begging, "Let me trade places with you." Now the well's water tastes like blood. The echoes follow me, and the town elders won't meet my eyes. This isn't a story about wishes. It's about what happens when you listen to what's trapped below. I should have known better. Mom did. The day she disappeared, she left her locket by the well. Inside was a note. Don't let it answer. Too late. The well sat at the heart of Willowbrook, moss-crusted and older than the town itself. As kids, we'd dare each other to peer into its black mouth, giggling when our whispers bounced back as warped, gurgling echoes. "I wish for a puppy." "Drown it," the well would mock. But Mom hated that well. She'd pull me away, her grip tight. "Some wishes cost more than coins, Eli." The night she vanished, I found her standing by it, her nightgown soaked in rain. "It's not a well," she whispered. "It's a throat." The coin 20 years later, my daughter Lily found a tarnished silver dollar in her backpack, etched with "Wish wisely." "The well lady gave it to me," she said. No one admitted to the gift. That night, Lily sleepwalked to the well. I found her kneeling, chanting, "Bring her back, bring her back." The echo replied, "Granted." The next morning, the well's water turned thick and rust-red. Lily's reflection showed a woman behind her, Mom's eyes, a stranger's smile. Town elders avoided me. Only Mr. Harlow, the archivist, cracked open his records. "In 1893, a farmer trapped his daughter's killer in the well," he said, showing me a brittle journal. "Used a silver coin cursed by a witch. Every wish since feeds the thing inside." Lily's drawings grew sinister. Grandma, holding her hand near a well, captioned, "She's coming home." The well's echo warped into Mom's voice. "Let Mr. out one night, I found Lily sleepwalking again, a rope coiled around her wrist. The other end snaked into the well. Mr. Harlow gave me the farmer's journal. To reseal the well, I needed to become a blood anchor, a descendant of the original trapper. Cut your palm, drip 7 drops into the well and say, 'Return to silence.' But if it offers a trade, refuse." Rain lashed the well as I sliced my palm. Blood hit the water, hissing like acid. The ground trembled. Return to silence! Stones cracked. A skeletal hand shot out, dragging me into the abyss. I plunged into a cavern reeking of rot and wet stone. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed like a heartbeat. The creature hung from the ceiling, a mass of fused bodies, voices overlapping. Your mother stayed to spare you. Now it's your turn. Mom's face surfaced in the sludge. Go back. Protect Lily. The creature lunged. Or join us. I slashed my arm, blood spattering the fungi. Light flared. The creature shrieked, retreating into shadows. Mom's voice echoed. Run. It's not over. I woke at the well's edge, my hand scarred, Lily shaking me. Grandma says you're safe now. The well's water runs clear, but Lily hums lullabies I don't recognize. Last night, I found her clutching a silver dollar. The well lady gave me another. She says we'll play soon. Rain taps the windows. The echo whispers, Gratitude for the anchor. Story number 11. After my mother's funeral, I returned to her creaking Victorian home, the air thick with the scent of mildew and unresolved secrets. Her absence echoed in every room, but it was the attic that called to me, a place she'd forbidden me to enter as a child. Inside, under a floorboard warped by decades of rain, I found the music box. Its lid depicted a mother cradling a void where the child should be, her face etched with sorrow. I remembered her humming the lullaby, her voice trembling as she tucked me in. Why do you sound scared, Mom? I'd asked. She'd kissed my forehead. To keep the shadows away, darling. A note inside the box, brittle with age, warned, play it only once. But grief made me reckless. The melody spilled out, a minor key dirge that made my bones ache. That night, rain drummed the roof in rhythm with the tune, and whispers seeped through the walls. Feed us. By morning, I couldn't recall the sound of Mom's laugh. Photos of us at the beach showed only empty waves. Her journal, buried in a moth-eaten trunk, confessed, The song isn't a lullaby, it's a shield. It makes you forget what the hollow singer craves. At the local library, Ms. Greer, the librarian, eyed the music box with dread. Your family's not the first it's haunted. She led me to records of 7 families who'd gone quiet in the 1920s. Their descendants now recited, What you don't recall can't be eaten. In the grocery store, Mrs. Harlow, a neighbor, gripped my arm. Your mother begged me to burn that box. Now it's too late. Her eyes darted to the shadows pooling at our feet. The singer's voice seeped through cracks, a static-laced hum harmonizing with rain. Memories dissolved like sugar in tea. My first kiss became a blur of raincoat fabric. Dad's funeral? An empty casket in my mind. I tracked down Miss Ellery, 103, in a nursing home. Her mind was sharp, save for gaps where her children should be. It takes your name last, she rasped, clutching my wrist. First it eats your joy, then your pain, then you. My nephew, Liam, began drawing twisted figures in his sketchbook. The shadow lady sings to me, he said. She wants Auntie's music box. The attic became a prison. The music box's warnings grew urgent. Wind me, it pleaded. Each play erased more. My college graduation, the taste of Mom's peach pie, but silenced the singer's whispers. Cornered in the attic, the hollow singer took form, a shifting abyss with Mom's face, Dad's hands, and my own eyes weeping static. Give me your wedding day, it demanded, or I'll take Liam's first steps. I wound the music box one last time. The lullaby surged, sharp as a scalpel. I carved out memories like rotten flesh. My high school graduation, the scent of Mom's perfume, my reflection in the mirror. The singer wailed, dissolving into rain. But as I collapsed, the music box snapped shut, its melody trapped inside for now. The house sold quickly. Liam giggles at empty corners, his sketches now filled with void-eyed children. Ms. Ellery's journal arrived posthumously. The final entry: "It's back. Bring the box." Tonight, rain hums the lullaby. The music box trembles in my hands. Liam whispers, "Auntie, the shadow lady says you're late." And that concludes our chilling accounts. But remember, these stories aren't just fiction. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying true tales. Sleep tight if you can. Until next time, stay safe in the dark.